I'm just going to quickly introduce everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out. I really do appreciate you taking your time to attend, especially our panelists. Without further ado, the host with the most, may I introduce Richard, who is an expert in his field with networking, business connection, business leader in his own right, telecommunications, and a whole bunch of other things. I'm sorry, Richard, I've only got 3. I'm sure there's another 10.
That's plenty. That's plenty, really.
Hosting this evening for us. So over to you, Richard.
Terrific. Thanks. Thank you, Willie. And thank you for all coming along this evening. I'm Richard Carter of Business Connection Resources. We have a distinguished panel with us tonight. Matthew Holland, the founder of AllBiz, Preet Singh, the founder and CEO of the AEK Group, Rick Williams, owner of Platform 24, and Buck Samurai, the Chief Financial Officer of Service Offices International. And thank you very much to Service Offices International for putting this all together and being the driving force behind this event. We'll hear from each of our panelists about their businesses a little later. And of course, to our panelists, if you have any trouble answering questions, some really tough questions coming up for you. If you have any trouble answering any of those questions, as I'm sure you know, it's now quite okay just to have a little chat about Peppa Pig to relieve the pressure. We'll look forward to that. For our audience, if you have some questions, please submit them via the chat function. Willie will be keeping an eye on that, so we look forward to getting some of your questions during the evening. Our topic this evening concerns agile businesses, and in particular, what lessons they may hold for our own businesses. A lot of the world's most recognized and leading brands and organizations are stated that they're moving towards an agile format now. But what is that? What is an agile business? I obviously did a bit of research before this evening, came up with a few snippets without getting too boring, a few snippets which seem to recur in everybody's definition about what agile is. One is collaboration and teamwork is key. One is being able to adapt quickly to market changes. One is having working solutions which sort of override comprehensive documentation. It's the ability to respond rapidly and flexibly to customer needs, the ability to quickly redirect people and resources, and a commitment to flexibility and an openness to change. Those themes seem to be the recurring themes around what makes an agile business. And fairly obviously, an agile business differs very dramatically from the traditional command and control environment that certainly I remember when I started off in business and was in the lower echelons. I certainly remember that command and control environment. But I might just kick off with our panelists. Do you regard, with particularly a reflection to those snippets, do you regard Australian businesses as being agile? Maybe I'll kick off with Preet. Preet, you deal closely with your clients. Do you regard them as being agile? Do they have those sort of agile characteristics at this stage?
Look, I would say that across it's very industry specific. And I think the industry is derived whether a business has to be agile to compete. I feel like some industries have found the ability to kind of survive in the old ways where you don't have to adapt, but that's slowly and rapidly changing. I think COVID really made a large impact in that, where it forced a lot of businesses to think about quickly getting online, quickly learning how to, like old traditional stores that relied on foot traffic, for example. They had never looked at any online advertising, they never looked at a website, never looked at e-commerce, and then they were forced to change. So I think a lot of industries did survive that requirement to be agile, but then there's some industries, like for example, just a media agency industry, in that we have no choice but to be agile, because you wake up one morning and Facebook ads has changed. You know, you wake up the next morning, Google searches, there's a new algorithm, and you have to adapt to the new algorithm, and you have to work out what's happened with all your ranks. So I think in some industries you have no chance but to be agile, but other industries have gotten away with it a bit longer than we would have liked. Yeah.
Okay. How about yourself, Rick? What's your feel on that point?
I think what Preet said is generally true. I do feel that in a lot of industries, there's a drive to be flexible and agile and to move towards that digital transformation. And certainly COVID has forced that to happen faster. In my industry, managed IT, it's naturally built into the way that we operate. Being able to make change is a daily occurrence in the IT industry, and so we have to be across that change. Our clients don't necessarily want to know about it, or they don't necessarily want to do it, but they kind of have to trust that we're going to be working in their best interest, I suspect. So look, I think there's definitely been a lot of transition in the last 2 years, for sure. A lot of businesses have had to make that change, kicking and screaming. And I think what we really have noticed is that a lot of businesses don't like change. People in businesses don't like change, but I think what we're finding is that more and more people are becoming much more accustomed to the fact that change is just a natural thing, and that it's happening much faster across the board in all sorts of industries. And it's not going to revert back, as Preet was saying, to some of the old school ways. Some of those things are gone, and for a successful business moving forward, you have to be able to adapt quickly to those changes, to the market forces, effectively.
Okay. And Matthew, how do you see Australian businesses? Are they really getting to grips with Agile?
Look, I have to agree wholeheartedly with the past two comments. It's really industry specific. So when I see a lot of small business, very small business, and they're not agile at all. The only change in their business model that I can see is directive. So it's coming from a supplier, or it's coming from an absolute need to change. But it's going out to see a business owner that's looking at systemizing their business, and just seeing how much of a dinosaur they really are. Just still shocks me to today. So that certainly the businesses I deal with, no, they're certainly COVID did something, but it's not in the sectors that I'm working with.
Okay. And Buck, what's your conclusions?
Look, I'd have to agree with Rick and Preet, and also Matthew to a degree. I think got different experiences, but like I've always gone through the system of, if a company does something well, doesn't matter how well it does it. If it doesn't change, the only guarantee is it'll go out of business. I'm afraid in the current world, we have to change. Change has been forced on us with COVID, and that's helped a lot of people. There are certain industries that have done really well. And there's changes. I think it's accelerated the change that's going to be required for us going forward. And it's helped people adapt as they slowly get used to it. But in the end, we learned that we have to do it. We have to make the changes. And there are changes that, I look at our industry. Well, one of the industries I work in is serviced offices industry. Everybody talks about, work from home, kind of do this or whatever. And I don't think we know the new norm in that for the next 2 to 3 years. We don't know what the new standard is. So that's going to be a constantly changing environment while we figure it out.
Yeah.
It's exciting times, really, if you look at it. Kind of keeps us on the ball.
Yeah. So what do businesses need to do if they're not adopting this? I just go around the table, and the top 2 things that businesses could do to become more agile. Anybody like to kick off on that one? What would you recommend the top 2 things that a business could do to improve their agility?
Technology.
Go for it, or?
Yeah, go for it, Fred.
Yeah, look, I would say listening to your customer is very important, and it's easier than ever to listen to your customer. Previously, you wouldn't be able to, if you were, again, traditional retail, people would walk into your store and walk out of the store. You'd have no clue what they were looking for unless you talk to them. Now you don't even need to talk to them. You can see on tools like Google Search Console, you can see what people are searching and visiting your website from. You can use things like Google Analytics to see what pages they're visiting on your site. It's about, and it's not even about if you're not online and you want to see what other people are searching. There's other tools like Uber Suggest, for example, where you can see what the general searches are. Google Trends are available, where you can see what trending searches are in your industry. Those type of things allow you to connect with your customer in a way that you weren't able to do in the past so easily. So there's no reason to not know what they want, because their behaviors are publicly available information now. Obviously not to an individual, and the privacy is respected, but there you can still get general trend analysis. You know, like for example, we have one customer who's seeing that sit-stand desks. We found that in Google Trends that sit-stand desks were becoming more popular, and he started purchasing what people are looking for. Before, it used to be that you used to guess what people wanted. You'd have to create marketing pitches and drive products down people's throats and say, this is going to change your life. Now you can respond to people looking for things and give them what they want. It's more about serving intent as opposed to forcing it. And I think that's one of those really key things, is just be intensely customer focused and use the technology available to you to respond to your customer. And I think the second most important thing is make communication between your teams more fluid. And I think technology allows that it can completely change the way you communicate in your team. Like, for example, we use Slack, which is a great chat communication that's live, instantaneous, and that's completely changed the way we talk. You know, before, emails were very, very inefficient. So using technology to communicate, making sure that you're breaking down any communication barriers. So again, that will be critical for you to respond to whatever information you have. So if you are looking at what customers are looking at the data from customers, you can then respond to it faster because you can communicate internally with your team better. So tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, like we're using right now, and Asana, those type of tools are very, very powerful in making your teams communicate and make sure that your cross-border communication is also better if you are communicating internationally or between states.
Terrific, thank you. And Matthew, I think you had a couple of things you wanted to bring in at this point.
Look, I absolutely agree. I think it's technology. Some of the people I deal with, and it's probably the reason I'm not seeing the agility in a lot of the businesses, that they're probably on the tail end of their business, their life cycle in that business. But you can see the opportunity that they're missing, and that's possibly why, you know, I'll get called in to try and help them through that tech space, or get them ready for the next person to come in. So to bring the technology in, but just I think, you know, adding systems and technology is the only way that I can see.
Right. Buck, any thoughts on a couple of good ideas to becoming more agile?
Look, it's technology is the key, but sometimes it's just looking at your business and thinking, hey, you know, what constrained me before should no longer constrain me. I literally just spent half a day with one of my clients, and they're a consulting company. They're a very specialist kind of, you know, green type consulting company, and they're up against the big boys kind of thing, the big four. But we worked out the process that where they lost out before was the resources, being able to compete on a statewide basis. Suddenly, we've got a changed environment. People are used to using the kind of technology to workshop it. So suddenly we don't have to get, you know, 4 councils out the west of New South Wales together. We can workshop it using kind of technology, and the market just opens up. And looking at that, that's just made a fundamental difference. And suddenly, you know, same type of thing is the cross-border thing happened. We're short of a couple of consultants that are specialists, and okay, there's going to be a couple of boys in the States that are going to have to stay up in the middle of the night to join these workshops. And that just opened up a whole field to us that before we couldn't compete with the big four. So,
and Rick?
Look, I'd say technology is an important driver in and of itself. It's not the total answer. I think that using the right technology and getting the right training for your team is really what actually makes the technology useful. So, you know, we do a lot of work in 365, the Microsoft environment, and you know, we have clients who go, oh yeah, we use Slack, we use Dropbox, we use this. They're paying for all these disparate services, and really what we tend to do is just manage them into one service. But that's all well and good, but they need to understand, you know, clients need to then understand how they can get the best value out of that. You know, the collaboration tools and the sort of the Preet talked about culture, you know, and I think that's a thing that's really been impacted massively by COVID, and having these tools does allow that culture to be rebuilt somewhat, but without the training, the tools don't really mean much. So it's about you know, having the right people to be able to champion these tools within your business and be that go-to person who's really happy to be the expert. You know, and we tend to when we engage with new clients, we tend to kind of really try and find those champions, and those are the people that will really help your business in this, you know, digital transformation that we've all heard so much about. Really what it is kind of just changing the way we communicate and a little bit, but you know, doing it really effectively is not necessarily just an intuitive thing for a lot of people. You know, being in this environment for a lot of people isn't very comfortable and isn't very isn't a great experience. So training and helping the end user to feel comfortable and to feel skilled goes a long way into making these new digital tools very, very effective in driving new business.
It's a good point. It's a good point. It's been a few years since I've actually worked for a corporate, but I do remember at one stage things like total quality management and quality assurance were the absolute emphasis that was put on everything. And I can remember people almost taking over businesses by imposing quality rules. So where is that now? What do we do with TQM and QA and those sort of things nowadays? I may get Buck to go in there first, because in the financial world, you know, you have to follow quite a lot of rules. How do you see that? How do you balance quality assurance with fast moving agile environments?
Look, and I've got to say, I've got a past in the corporate world, but I left it 20 years ago, and I implemented TQM and ISO 5000 and all of this stuff, and it used to take over your business. I've, you know, also, and I suppose I might be across some people, but I've also been working on implementing things like SAP and whatnot, and they control a business rather than you doing it. And in our environment where we're looking at it, the agile business, the successful ones, are able to actually adapt and make decisions quickly. And I actually think, I suppose, hey, I think about it, and the total quality management stuff, maybe it's still there, but I think we need to adapt to what our clients want and understand what it is they want and being able to deliver. Okay, we need to be able to deliver. We don't have to then spend, you know, kind of 3 years writing up a whole lot of manuals that everybody refers to every time a client rings up. But we still have to, you know, kind of carry it on and do it. So,
Matthew, you've managed successful multi-site businesses. I'm sure some sort of quality assurance was important there. But again, how do you balance that with teamwork and flexibility?
Look, I certainly remember the ISO days and having to implement that in a transport company and in the financial services as well to some degree. But yeah, you're right. I'm not seeing it these days in the same way. How do you manage it? I mean, I think it just comes down to best practice and just making sure that your business is following best practice. We're currently doing a piece of work with that the HIPAA standards and securities and so on. So I guess in some ways that's the modern side of it. So, you know, where we're storing documents and so on, and we just had to do a whole bunch of work with our business for our clients, obviously, to be compliant there. So I guess that's following on the same suit.
I guess culture, I just break in back to it and look at it, and I guess it's a culture you develop within the organisation that replaces a lot of that. If you can get a good, you know, learning culture, that helps. Sorry.
One of the things that the compliance has kind of come back into the framework. And I'd say compliance in general around data, because of new data security laws and regulations around the world, and also because of the security landscape around the world in terms of data security, privacy concerns, all of those kinds of things. So, a lot of the we're finding compliance coming really back into vogue in a much more aggressive way. We're doing a lot of consultancy work around ISO 27001, which is around data security and how data is accessed. And a lot of companies, have got very, very clear restrictions around where data is stored, how it can be accessed, who can access it, what machines it can be on. So, we have to be very careful, for example, that every piece of data that we touch never leaves Australia. That's an absolute compliance requirement for a number of our clients. So we've had to, there's a lot of ways that you can manage that. And, obviously digitally, that's all very possible, but a lot of that is really policy driven. And I think policy, data policy for most businesses is a long way behind the technology. And that's where the big gap is, I think, at the moment. And that's why companies are still getting caught out by ransomware and getting security issues, because the policy is the problem. The user is the biggest risk you have in your business. And if you manage the user, that's why I come back to training. If you manage the user and you train the user and you give them the tools to be able to identify the risk to a certain extent, then you're mitigating the risk to a large extent. Obviously, technology helps that; it backs it up. There's going to be tools there that do help, but that's definitely an area that we're seeing a lot of work in and a lot of concern in. And most businesses should be concerned about compliance, because if something goes wrong, I guarantee you there'll be consequences.
Perfect. Preet, what about your world in the sort of product development marketing world? You don't need QA and all that sort of stuff, do you? That's something you can just brush to the side.
I think product development, we specialize in high-risk products. So mum, baby at home. So there's a lot of compliance associated with that. Then I think what we found is it's a combination of what Buck said as well as what Rick said. Buck alluded to culture being very important. So if you have a culture where people care about the outcomes that they're delivering, that helps finish that last mile when it comes to process. So process generally gets you to 80 to 90% there, but you still need that culture for people to really get to that quality outcome. So I think a combination of those two things and using technology, everything I do will always include some level of technology, but it's what Rick said, it's how you use it, right? So if it's implemented well and the processes and quality assurance is built into the tools that you're using, sometimes that's how you kind of propagate that across your company. So for example, with us, we use a lot of checklists around any project that's happening, any task that's happening. We have predefined checklists that need to be followed, and compliance requirements of for that task to be completed, you need to upload screenshots of the finished product. That product then automatically goes to someone else to check it and approve it. So all of our QA is really built into the systems we use. But at the end of the day, that comes down to implementation. If your users aren't using it and it's not implemented in a pragmatic way, that people don't, good implementation of technology is generally out of the way. Like you don't feel like technology is in the way. It's just you fluidly use it and you don't notice that, oh, it's a headache to upload it.
Thank you. Look, guys, please feel free to jump in if you have any particular point that arises. But at this juncture, I might get Buck. Buck, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Excuse me. Yeah, look, I suppose as you introduced it, from Service Officers International, but I effectively went into that on kind of a basically had an extensive career as an accountant in the corporate world. I was a startup expert. So I basically I became a supply chain expert and a startup expert in Australia and overseas for many years. And came back out of that 20 years ago and started working with small businesses, doing kind of consulting work and running, so getting involved in the serviced office industry, because it was an industry that interested me, and I could see that, to be honest, one of the things that had attracted me to that industry was it's adaptable to the circumstances it's in. It's a very different industry than it was 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and it's changed a lot in the last 3 years. So that's what I do. And then, funny enough, I lecture at Australian School of Business and the AGSM, teaching people financial essentials to people who have no finance experience. So I've got a lot of wide experience and good stories. That's it.
Coming back to the serviced office space and the office space generally, do you see office space transforming to support agile working? And do you see office space changing, particularly in our, wherever we are now, COVID normal world, or wherever we might be? How do you see that affecting office space?
I touched on that a little bit earlier, but it's a case of there's lots of people talking that kind of, people like working at home, or they don't, or they come in 1 day or 2 days or whatever. And what we believe is going to happen over the next 2 years is there's going to be experimentation with companies. Some companies will need to get their people back in the office. Others, it will make sense to kind of do it 2 or 3 days, and others, maybe it's completely remote. But that experimentation, we believe, is going to take up to 2 years until we come up with that new norm. It's all wonderful to say, yeah, it's working now and stuff like that. But hey, we've had COVID, we've had lots of changes to our businesses, and now we've got to get back to the norm, and we've got to see how that settles out. And I don't think anybody in our industry, and there's others, and I talk a lot, obviously I've worked with a lot of other industries as well, they don't know the answer. We've got to work it through. So it's going to be, thing. Our virtual business doing really well. People are adapting, but I don't see that as a complete answer either. It's kind of going to be a mix. A new norm, we'll know in a couple of years, I believe.
Actually, Willie, I might just bring you in at this juncture, and your role is very much talking to clients and prospects about office space and office facilities and admin support. Are you finding any particular things that people are requesting now which they weren't prior to COVID?
Yeah, thanks for that, Richard. Look, there is a fair bit of interest currently, but at the moment, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, purely based on, we're talking about corporate teams, diminished down to, you've got a team of 30, 40, 50 people, and then all of a sudden everybody's working from home and the team's been reduced down to 20 because they're obviously doing a budget cut, this, that, the other. So generally speaking, there's a lot of activity in searches. However, nobody really is certain about when do we actually make the move, put the signature on paper, and move our people in, because there's a little bit of restraint as well, because you can't force, obviously, the employees to come back after a couple of years of, we're not so sure where we are. Are we at home? Are we in the office? COVID's done, I believe, a little bit of restraining and a little bit of damage somewhat to the market,
Just so, yeah. Step one, I'll just add a little bit there. Sorry, Willie, Richard.
No, please dive in. That's great.
One of the things we've discovered, and we talk to landlords all the time, and the landlords are thinking, okay, they have to be flexible as well, even though they don't know the answers. And they're saying, we have to design our office space so that there is what's the flex space that's in the building, kind of, we need that extra space for when all of the people come in, or they want to kind of bring their teams together, might not necessarily be in the offices all the time. So you have a smaller office, but you need access to those bigger spaces in the same building or very close. And people are thinking maybe that's the way forward. And that seems to be generally, I don't know how it'll go. And then they'll get to reduce their overall commitments, the cost. Because, and the other one thing that's happening, and I think the other guys most will be same stuff, people are thinking, well, you don't really have to be in the CBD area. You can kind of, this has allowed us to say we can operate just as effectively in a suburban area. and at 40% less rent, it makes a lot of difference.
At this juncture, Matthew, I might get you to introduce yourself and your business, and then follow that on with a general discussion about what sort of software tools and services that businesses will need to become more agile. Over to you, Matthew.
Yeah, okay. So our business has evolved over the last few years, and I guess some of that's due to COVID, but essentially we were a listings platform for businesses that are looking to exit, and then we moved into more capital raising and so on, partnership sales, that type of thing. So any kind of commercial asset sale, and that's where we are now. That's our primary business. On the back of that, and as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the trouble or issues we had trying to prepare a business for a listing were around the systems and processes they had or lack of. So we started to build systems, and we built them for ourselves. We built the task project manager. We built this, we built that. We used to, by the way, we used to recommend other systems, and that just got problematic and so on. And, you know, $100 a seat, it just, people wouldn't adopt. So we started building our own systems, and where we are today is we use our own SaaS system for our clients and that are coming in, looking at selling or buying and doing things. And we've been developing that. So, you know, that's our big venture at the moment. We're excited. We've finally launched that. It's been almost 2 years in the build. And it's basically an ERP system. So like you guys said earlier, it's about trying to make sure that everything is in one system. And that's what we've tried to do, is make sure that, you know, the task and project management and the mail and the calendar, and sure, we link in with everybody. I mean, if you don't connect with the Slacks and the Salesforces and Xeros and QuickBooks, then you're out on your own. So certainly we do all of that as well. And on the last note there, I think that, you know, what we're seeing, I do think probably going to be a little bit longer than the 2 years, I will say, to see the norm. I hope it's 2 years, but I've just got a feeling it could be as many as 3 or 4 years. It could be only because it's already been 2 years and we're not seeing a big push. The government, on the other hand, if they stimulate the CBD economies, that could change what we're all thinking at the moment. Because right now, unless they do something, it's probably going to shift out. So, but I think they're going to be forced to.
You've sorry, Matthew, did you have anything else to say?
Yeah.
Rick, you've been supporting clients in the IT area for what, 15 years or something of that ilk? Yeah. And if you could wave a magic wand and just get your clients to adopt one piece of software or one service which would make your life a lot better, what would it be?
Look, we kind of already do it. We're a Microsoft house. We use the Microsoft 365 suite, so that's really the area where we have a lot of expertise. And you know, it goes to a lot of what Matthew was saying there as well. It's trying to centralize and standardize the way people work and what the tools that they use. I guess the beauty in that system is it's a monthly cost for a suite of tools, you know, for your standard office software, and you can integrate your phone system into it, your CRM system, all your data, SharePoint, OneDrive, all of those things. So the one-stop shop is definitely the way to go. In terms of the back end, there's obviously heaps of other tools that can do specific things for specific companies. And as Matthew was pointing out, the really critical thing is that they talk effectively to each other. And because the one thing that kills businesses quicker than anything else is when you have double touching of functions, where you have that big overlap of functions, where you've got multiple people in the same business having to overlap in functions. And, you know, one person thinks it's better to do it this way, and then you just get that double touching, and that kills the productivity and frustrates everyone as well. So for us, it's like trying to get that cut through. Choose one system, whatever it might be. Train the users really effectively, and make sure you've got the support to ensure that that they're getting the most out of it. We regularly will send out little cheat sheets and updates of new features, to all of our clients. Most of those clients probably won't find much value in most of those little things that we send out, but there'll be a little nugget for someone which will make a massive difference in their business. And I think that's a key thing. But it happens to be Microsoft for us. It could be Google. It could be a bespoke system. It doesn't really matter. You just got to find something that works for you, that gives you efficiencies across those different areas of the business.
Did you want to dive into that question, Willie?
Sorry, yeah. Rick, I've got a question from the attendants. Mm-hmm. George Cavalares has got, Rick, have you seen a big adoption of the Power Platform suite?
Yeah, Power BI, yes. Yeah, that's definitely happening. And I think that's coming more as a result of Microsoft throwing a lot more money into the R&D of that whole Microsoft technology, the Microsoft 365 suite. So, there's definitely a lot of adoption at all levels with that Power BI, definitely. And the beauty of it, of course, is very adaptable, and you can get it to a lot of things for you. So yeah, we are seeing that, depending on what industry. But as I say, there's lots of tools out there. Microsoft's not the only player. Just so happens that that's the area that we specialize in, and I think that's one of the key things. All the panelists that are here today, we all have areas where we specialize in, and we have tools and services that we prefer to use. And from my point of view, is the more that you can kind of form that arrowhead of being more specialized and trying to give that high level of support and information to clients in one area that you really know exceptionally well, that's going to be a much more effective solution than trying to be all things to all people.
In next door to where I am at the moment, in my bedroom, under the bed, there's a big old black Dell server, which I haven't powered up for probably 10 years.
Yeah, don't.
I was worried then what you were about to disclose there, Richard.
You're just about to mute me, really. What's the balance now with SMEs in terms of using that old bit of server hardware or new bit of server hardware and using cloud software as a service products? Do you see a balance? Do you see that shifting? Where are we at between those two technologies, specifically with SMEs?
There's a huge shift to cloud. I mean, the big shift, I mean, certainly in the clients that we are targeting and looking for, right? So the big shift is that it's monthly. You pay monthly. You pay for what you use. You pay for the number of users that you have. It's scalable up and down. That's the beauty of it. The technology is constantly being updated, so you're getting version control across all of the technology you're using. So for example, on a basic level, everyone is using the very same version of Word. So when you format a document one way and I look at it, or we work on it together in a collaborative way online, which you can do, then we know it's going to look the same for all of us. And when we present it to our client, we know exactly what it's going to look like. It's not going to go through a number of iterations. So that's a key thing. So there's a massive shift to that, and also that monthly billing. I think certainly in my industry, it's managed services. We charge per user per month, unlimited support. We include all the tools under that umbrella, so there's no surprises in terms of what you're paying and what you're getting. So for clients, it's very easy to budget in that kind of environment. Whereas now these days, you buy a decent server, you're looking at $15,000 to $20,000 for a decent server. Now, that's a large expense for a small business up front, compared to a few $1,000s in project costs to get you up and running in a cloud platform, whatever it may be, whatever that cloud platform may be.
Matthew's business has recently launched a product, the Orbiz Hub, which is aimed at the SME market and is a SaaS product. Matthew, what do you see as the big advantages of the SaaS marketplace?
Economies of scale. I mean, the fact is that we can bring this all together, and it is one monthly subscription in most parts, and because we're doing it the way we've done it, it's incredibly affordable. As you say, you're not having to buy a $15,000 server, and I also remember those days. So it's very, very expensive compared to where we are today, or was very expensive. So. Look, I think the advantage is that you are agile. Going back to the original topic, it's having that cloud-based system makes you agile. If you're able to adopt it and use it and use the best parts of it, it's really, you're getting the best of everything, best for your business and your team.
Terrific. And another question coming in there, Willie?
Sorry, break up.
Yeah, we've got another question here from so Lolo Fernandez. On the Agile topic, what about tools like Jira? Is this used outside of IT?
I don't know. I'm in IT. But yeah, clearly, it is. Atlassian's a huge company. All of those tools are used extensively in all sorts of industries. And I think the interesting part is that they are adaptable. They're built to be adaptable. They're built to be able to be used across lots of industry types. And the only thing that restricts that is your imagination, really. Ultimately, there's plenty of add-ons and plugins that can make all of these tools incredibly powerful and useful.
Fantastic.
You've been a little quiet, so we might get you to introduce yourself and your business.
Yeah, sure. So I run AEK Media. We're a digital growth specialist. Essentially, we focus on two core services. One is website design and development, and the other is integrated marketing. Integrated marketing is essentially where we create a common story across various channels, whether that be Google search ads, SEO, Facebook ads, TikTok, LinkedIn ads. So we essentially create curated campaigns that tell a consistent story across a buying journey for customers, and use various combinations of media to essentially attract a conversion and educate your consumers.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Do you, with companies becoming more agile, how does that affect marketing and how you manage marketing and develop marketing? How does that, what challenges does that give you, Preet?
Look, I think it gives us more opportunities than challenges. It's the good part about when companies are agile is they're launching products faster. They're listening to their customers and adapting things rather than, it makes telling a story a lot easier when you're given a product to market, because generally that product is already serving an intent. So we can build a marketing story about saying that, hey, this product solves these problems for you. It's a lot. Video marketing is one of those examples where video marketing used to have a huge barrier to entry. Literally, you could only do video marketing on TV. Now you can do YouTube ads, Facebook video ads, in-stream ads. It's overall, it's a much more exciting place to be, because we just can respond to changes a lot faster, and you can get so much information. Like I said with the starting question as well, it's just, you can do so much research. So before we launch a product with some of our customers, we do something called keyword research, where we go in and see what people are searching, how many searches there are, what trends are there in the search history. And then we define that when you're picking a color, you're able to get consumer feedback before you've actually picked colors for products. So that's where it's a lot more connected of an experience, and you can follow people and reach people earlier in the process, before they've gotten to the store, essentially. So there's a lot about what we're doing right now is working on discovery versus intent. So there's a pool of keywords, or there's a pool of things people will say and search based on them learning and in that awareness stage and consideration stage before they go and buy. There's an ability to create trust as a brand now by approaching people in that awareness stage, educating them, and through education, it creates trust, and then that trust makes the conversion a lot easier.
I'll just throw open that marketing issue to the rest of the panel. Any thoughts on how you see marketing nowadays? Is marketing more agile? Does it reflect the way businesses are developing? Any comments from any of the panelists?
You have to adapt. You don't have a choice. The people are adapting. They're using different tools. You know, I remember we used to use yellow pages once. That was our biggest attraction of clients. And I think we had it running just for old time's sake until recently. But you have to adapt to what the customer wants. And what Preet's saying is, it's, you know, something like that goes there. Yet while I was listening to Preet, I was looking at that and thinking, you know, all of the stuff he does, in the old days we'd call about messing with your subconscious or something like that, effectively. the clients don't even know what you're doing. But it hasn't changed. That part of it hasn't changed. We have to find out what the clients or your potential clients are using and adapt.
The best marketing, you don't feel like it's marketing.
Absolutely. Yes.
I remember a Yellow Pages salesman coming to see me just before the internet really took off, and they didn't really have a category which suited my business. And I said, well, why not create a new category? And oh no, we couldn't do that. That would really upset all our clients. You know, we're not going to create a new category. It's and it was that sort of rigid the approach that Yellow Pages had. And if you were first in, that was it. You were always first in the listing. Your ad was always first. There's no way of getting past that, which was quite interesting. And of course, the internet came in, and I don't know if they even print it anymore, do they? Do they even do a print? It's and I always thought the thing I always thought Yellow Pages missed, and where they weren't agile enough, and where they needed teamwork and flexibility, was they should have been out there reselling internet advertising. They knew all the people who were buying advertising. They had all those contacts. They had salespeople. They had the infrastructure, and they didn't go out and sell internet advertising. They let these upstarts like Google just steal the market from them, and they'd have been the ideal people to sell Google ads, and they just wouldn't. They weren't agile. I think that was a great example of not being agile, being fixed, and just focusing on exactly where and not seeing things coming along.
Another Kodak moment.
Yeah. Rick, you haven't. I think we've got a fairly good idea about what you do, Rick, but you haven't really introduced yourself and your business. Let's have your introduction.
Sure. So my company's called Platform 24. As Richard said, we've been around for about 15 years. In the last 5 years, we've really embraced the managed IT philosophy, and what that really means is that we pretty much take control of the network, but we take responsibility for everything on the network: your data, the backup, disaster recovery. Per user per month, all included, unlimited user support, and a suite of tools. And I guess the reason why we went down that path, and we spent a lot of money training internally and getting our policies internally to be able to really embrace that methodology, was because it allowed us to be very agile in terms of how we deliver the services we deliver. So, for example, we part of the monthly spend per user would be a suite of tools. So, we will supply the endpoint protection, the antivirus, or the DNS filter, the spam filtering, and all of these different components which protect your data, maintain the integrity of your network, and your staff, and support them in being able to do their job efficiently. But if we're always testing new software, and we're always checking what's good in the market, what's going up and down. We're looking at the Gartner quadrants and seeing what's really working well. And if we find that one of the tools that we're using is underperforming compared to something else in the market, we'll just change it out for all of our clients overnight. We use our remote management tool. It will literally send out a request to uninstall the software from all of those, thousands of systems overnight, and it will install the new software overnight. The user doesn't really have an input in that. So we are kind of almost injecting a bit of agility into the clients without them even knowing about it. And that's the beauty of it, because they get that additional protection without really having any impact on their workflow. But we're doing our part to help at least that side of their business to be moving onwards and upwards as they go. And hopefully the intent is that it allows those businesses to concentrate on what they're really good at, whether that be manufacturing or marketing or or whatever it might be. So.
Terrific, thank you. Now, I have just one more question for the panel, but before that, audience, if you have any questions, please, this is your chance to dive in and ask your questions. And also for the audience, if you'd like to connect with any of the panel members, find out more about their services, please just put that in chat and we'll make sure we send some contact details through to you. Yeah, look, teamwork is great, and having lots of teams in your business is great and makes you more agile. But how do you manage teams? Any tips for managing teams, keeping them agile whilst keeping them on track and keeping them motivated? Do we have any tips there? Maybe we'll start off with Matthew, because you're doing quite a lot of development projects at the moment. And how do you manage those teams? Any good tips for that?
I seem to have frozen on my end, but hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you clearly. Yeah, you're just you're being a bit of a ventriloquist, but that's fine.
I was worried about myself there. Look, task management systems. What we started to develop in our own system was a to-do task project system. So in that flow, and that's what we developed on our own. We were using lots of brands, the Mondays and so on, and they didn't quite suit what we needed. So we developed that ourselves, and look, I think that's been the key for us and our team working across the world, is just making sure that everybody's on board. We've got timers, we've got, that we can set up, we've got, deliverables, we've got, we can invoice out of projects and tasks. As long as it works for your business, I think that's the way that it's worked for us.
Any other thoughts, panel, on managing teams?
Look, I think, one of the things that has happened that we've all become acutely aware of is that sort of that culture, business culture erosion. As people don't spend time physically together, they kind of forget how you're meant to interact, and some of that creativity in a business gets lost. And I think it goes to the point we were talking about earlier on about getting back to allowing people to get back to the office. I mean, my industry is by definition, it's remote. With the guys work remote. I have a number of employees who I've never met, who work remotely. One guy lives on a farm in Victoria. He does farming in the morning and IT in the afternoon. But the culture part is critical, and I think that is the thing that's really going to drive the next wave of change around business, because it's been lost a little bit, and I think that ultimately, because we now have this flexible work-life balance and we're able to do that, businesses need to actually focus time and attention onto that cultural piece. And we do silly things like virtual drinks and gaming. The whole team sort of get on and we play an online game. At the end of a week on a Friday, we make a big show of employee of the week. We've got guys, we split the team into 2 pods, and they each now come into the office for half of the week, and there's a crossover day so they can catch up and have lunch together. And I think some of those physical social interactions are so important in a creative sense in any business. I think it's great that we can work with people all over the world, and I think there's definitely a place for that. But you know, as we sort of I think you lose a little bit of soul when there's no physical contact. And you know, I've definitely found in the last few months where we have been, or the last month or so, where we have been transitioning back and allowing people to spend time together, that has kind of spawned some really creative solutions to problems. So that's how I hope it moves forward. And I think that's my only tip, really. We gamify a lot of stuff as well, because they're all techies, right? So we make everything a game. There's a big board up and they're all scored against each other in terms of how well they're doing, and you know, how many positive reviews they get. So you know, they all love that.
I think it's getting back to the communications. It's involving them, keeping them informed, but involving them. We've got 4 major locations. And hey, we discovered wine and cheese, virtual wine and cheeses, and trivia quizzes and stuff like that, you know, the silly things. And we have a theme running across it. And you can't physically get them all in one spot. We've actually got some offshore people, but the communication, making them think that they're, you know, understand that they're thought of, and keeping them informed of everything that's happening. It's easy to say, well, oh, they're there, what do they need to know about this? They appreciate the fact that we keep them informed of all parts of the business. That seems to work.
Look, I think, yeah, it's pretty much the 2 things is building all of those principles into your culture. So we've really focused on transparency. We've also got a lot of tech heads that gamify everything. Then also pretend to look like your Google. That's another big element of it. So there's lots of tables and everything, all of that type of stuff is kind of a mandatory in our industry. But yeah, it's about fostering an enjoyment for your work. So, you know, we do things like lunch and learns, where on a regular basis we'll put on a video learning about a new topic and have lunch at the same time. Those type of elements where it makes that the focus that you enjoy your work, and everyone involved, that and I think your hiring is a very big part of that as well. Hire for culture as well as knowledge, not just for knowledge. And I think if you build that team or with your hiring practices around your philosophy and your culture, that it kind of compounds overall.
I think it's actually more important to hire for culture than it is for skills. Skills can be learned. Skills can be learned and taught. If you've got someone who's motivated, but they've got a great attitude and they've got a good understanding and they fit with the team, that's going to be a massive, much bigger asset than someone who is highly technically skilled but socially inept.
Yeah, no,
we've made that mistake a number of times in our business, and obviously in technology businesses it's an easy mistake to make. You think, wow, that guy's skill set is amazing, we've got to have that person, but actually they cause more disruption in the team than than the person who says, oh, I'm not really sure how to do that, but hey, give me the tools and I'll learn it.
This is true. The chemistry is really important, and whether it's people or businesses or whatever, critical.
Okay.
Turning up is important as well, isn't it? Just
any other items that the panel would like to raise? If not, thank you very much. Rick, Preet, Matthew, Buck, thank you very much for your contributions. I think we've covered some very valuable ground. There's been some very interesting information, some great ideas about Agile coming out and becoming Agile, and the challenges and the benefits and what have you. It's been fascinating to listen to you all this evening. Willie, thank you, and Service Officers International for putting this all on. And I've enjoyed it very much, and I hope the audience have as well. And I'm sure we've got a record. Well, I know we've got a recording of this, which we will make available to people so that they can review it in future as well. And to all the attendees out there, if you need some help with virtual services to make your business more agile, please get in touch with Willie. He'll certainly be able to help you.
That's fantastic, Richard. Thank you so much, Richard, for hosting on behalf of SOI. Very much appreciated. Gentlemen, all the panelists, thank you for your time. Really appreciate your participation. look forward to hopefully hearing from the audience for any connections that you would like to make, or questions, further questions, perhaps even service from Preet, Rick, Matthew, or Buck himself. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
No worries.